glad you could find time to join me today. This is The Point, and I am Miriam Gutu. My guest today is the Principal Secretary, State Department for Maritime and Shipping Affairs under the Ministry of Transport, Infrastructure, Housing and Urban Development, Mrs. Nancy Karigithu. Thank you for joining me on the show today.
Thank you for giving me this opportunity to speak to you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And before we proceed, congratulations on receiving the Lifetime Achievement Award by CEO Global just a while ago.
Thank you. I'm humbled to have received that recognition. Usually we just do our work. We are glad at a moment like this to realize that somebody is noticing. So it's a very humbling experience. Yes.
Congratulations again.
Thank you.
So the main functions of your department.
Yes.
What exactly does your day look like for Nancy in the office?
Okay, my day I have a team of staff. Yes, as you are aware, the mandate of the department is to promote the development of shipping and maritime affairs in Kenya. And that's what we do on a day-to-day basis. As you are aware, it's a brand new department, having only been created in government for the first time in May last year through Executive Order number 2.
So it's slightly a year older, a year old. Slightly over
May.
1 year.
It was created in May.
Last year?
Yes, so it's not even a year old, but
yeah.
we are glad that for the first time we have a seat in government in Nairobi on policy making, and we are seeing the fruits of that coming to be seen for the Kenyan people. For example, we've been now mainstreamed within government planning processes for development, now being part of Vision 2030, the blueprint document for development of Kenya, in the third medium-term plan. So that for us is very gratifying. So on a day-to-day basis, we are trying to sell our agendas and our programs because it's, as you realize, it's a wide sector. We have the promotion of marine cargo initiative that has taken a lot of our time and energy since we were created, trying to talk to Kenyans in order for them to understand that the buyer, the importer, has some powers in deciding how they are going to do their business. And one of them is to decide where to buy their insurance policy for the goods as they are coming into this country. So the other thing we need is interact with various arms of government, because as you realize, the maritime agenda has not been very well understood, and therefore we are trying to talk to as many government departments as possible in order for us to create synergy and to work together, and for them to realize the part they can play and to come on board. And we take the maritime agenda further. One of the next initiatives we are going to be doing is have a training for senior government officers on maritime training and what it means in terms of development and national planning. And this, we've got a partner in the International Maritime Organization. They'll be coming in November, and we can't wait for that to happen, so that we can have a lot of us in government speaking the language. The
same language.
And it's going to be a very busy time for us. Thank you.
So you just mentioned maritime and its development national in the Kenyan economy. So I'd just like to know, what does maritime sector mean to our economy?
Okay, maritime sector is one area of our government, of our nation, that has not been quite well articulated or understood, because we are a coastal state, as you are aware, bordering the Indian Ocean, along, as it were, along coastline, over 600 kilometers. Then we've got, other than that, 10,000 square kilometers of inland waters. That translates into a very big estate for Kenya, which has not really yielded its potential. You're talking of 200 miles, nautical miles inward from the coastline that has been reserved under international law for exploitation and for economic as it were, development of this country, but which we've unfortunately not been able to secure and exploit for this country. So we're glad now that it's been recognized as a very strong pillar of development. The President, His Excellency, Honorable Uhuru Kenyatta, has been very, very passionate about the blue economy, and which is what basically maritime means, is having the different economic sectors within the maritime sector being recognized for what their value is. For example, having the fisheries, exploitation and development of our fisheries capacity. You're talking of people-centered programs, for example, maritime education and training for our young people. And when I talk of training and capacity building, I'm talking about it on two fronts. The first one being creating internal national capacity for developing the sector here in Kenya. But also very, very important, creating a workforce which is ready for export into the international job market. When you talk about empowerment of youth, when you talk about job creation, you can't in this day and age talk about those two issues without touching and tapping into the maritime
Okay, so of course maritime industry in Kenya has a huge potential, as you just described, but it's also a sleeping giant, as many, you would attest to that, because we're not living to its fullest potential. So what can be attributed to the slow growth in the blue sector?
I think it's basically, let me say, and it's not a challenge only to Kenya, it's global, which is one of the reasons that the International Maritime Organizations created one day to mark the sector, which is the World Maritime Day, during the 3rd week of September every year. And the reason that was created was because of the realization that a lot of people don't interact with the maritime sector. A lot of people have no clue that their way of life is so deeply affected by the maritime sector. If you look around this place where we are sitting, it's been touched by shipping, by the maritime transport. The clothes we wear, the seat we are sitting on, the equipment we are using, at one time or the other.
So we cannot detach the maritime sector from...
It goes through the fiber of our entire way of life, of our entire economy. Talk about fueling the cars we used to come here. It's all maritime. And therefore, this is not a problem. The lack of awareness is a problem affecting many nations. And one of the reasons being, we do not interact with the sector as often as other modes of transport. If you talk of aviation, it's in your face. Because, you know, very high senior level, senior policy level, creating levels of government are using the aviation industry on a day-to-day basis, moving from point A to point B. If you talk of the roads, we are using that. So we are interacting with the sector on a day-to-day basis. But when you go to the supermarket and you find it laden with goods, you just go in and buy. But we never give a thought or attach our mind to the fact that how they landed
has made it possible.
Maritime has made it possible. It's the biggest carrier and mover of goods in bulk. It's the biggest, carrier of, fuel that makes our life what it is. Technology, fuels technology, and so many other things. So therefore, it's this lack of association and correlation with senior policy makers that makes maritime so unknown.
So detached from the rest of everything else.
But it's our duty as experts to bring this message across. And one of the things we are thinking is it's not right that we associate or we interact with the maritime sector in terms of the oceans, in terms of the seas. When we are grown up, we need to bring this knowledge to young people.
Maybe introduce it in the curriculum.
That's one of the things we are considering. Bring it to the nation, to the awareness and to the knowledge of people when they are young, because after all, we didn't become a coastal state for nothing. God had a reason to bestow us with such a rich, asset, and we better let our citizenry know from the beginning that this is what it is and this is what it means for us.
Okay. Okay, pretty well. So the first time we met, we were at the Bandari College. You participated in a workshop that you were there. And so it is a college that maybe it's not very known, and maybe a lot of young people clearing Form 4 or are looking for an opportunity to join college might not be one of the colleges they would consider.
Yeah.
So why would you encourage a young person to want to consider joining training at Bandari College? Yeah.
Okay, Bandari College is a premier training institution for maritime affairs, and the plans we have for it, and we would want to see happen as part of our plans, is to see it become a regional center of excellence for maritime training. And this is because maritime skills are not your everyday, affair.
You can't just learn on the job.
You just can't learn on the job.
Okay.
It's internationally recognized.
Yeah.
Of course, we've got a lot of people in water, riparian areas like Lamu, who have no choice but to use water on a day-to-day basis. And therefore there we find a lot of people who've learned on the job. And one of the issues we would like to do is take them on board formally, recognize their skills and knowledge, which they've acquired over time, but which may be some of the issues, which will be enhanced by that process of formalizing. Yeah, but today, if you ask me, I would advise as many as possible young people to get into the maritime sector. It's a rich area. It's an area with a lot of sectors or segments which all speak together. And it's an area with 87 different skills that can be attained. Now, one of the issues we will need to do is encourage educational institutions, polytechnics, also, and other institutions of learning to take on board maritime training, because you can approach it from different areas. There is the technical one, there is the soft issues like law. I'm a maritime lawyer myself, and we would like to see even local institutions partnering with foreign universities to deliver maritime law degrees right here in Kenya, and many other areas. For example, economics, we can have maritime economics right here. Next year we are going to have the International Association of Maritime Economics having their first conference in Africa, Kenya.
In Kenya?
Yes.
That's really nice.
So we're looking at an event like that one to help young people see that there's a lot to even economics that they can do with a maritime, tinge. Even transport, maritime transport and logistics. There's a lot of things that we can, opportunities and areas of specializations that young people can take up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. So approximately how much does Kenya lose to foreign marine insurance firms?
Marine?
Because sometimes Kenyans, the traders find it easier to insure with the foreign.
To insure foreign companies.
So how much do the local insurers lose in the maritime to the foreign?
According to the analysis that we've done, in terms of the goods that we import, the exports, we could be talking of upwards of 20 billion.
Oh, wow.
Because,
that is per annum?
Yes, per annum. Because you're talking of all the export goods being insured abroad, and that is not necessary. But now we've got the enforcement of Section 20 of the Insurance Act that requires now all imports. If you're going to insure, you must buy a local insurance cover. But that, you realize, has got a lot of implications, because it's tied in with our other processes, logistics, for example, in terms of clearance of cargo, in terms of customs duties, so many other issues. But the main thing that we find and we have to address is a gap in knowledge in terms of the international traders, in terms of the people undertaking international trade. Because there are two people here, the buyer and the seller. And there's something we call international commercial terms. These have been agreed internationally so that to make trading easier. For example, so that you don't have, it makes it easy to negotiate. You don't have to start from scratch. You just mention one of the over 20 terms and somebody knows what you're talking about. And the Incoterms help to define areas of responsibility in terms of the contracts, areas of liability, and you know, in cases of loss, where the loss falls, and in terms of how you relate, in terms of apportioning those duties and liabilities between you, the buyer, and the seller. And we find that over time, traditionally, we've never questioned, we've never gotten involved in that kind of negotiation,
Okay.
in that kind of, you know, interaction with our overseas buyers and sellers. We just are interested in the, you know, the what do you call it? You know, the bottom line. I want this, you have it, yes, how much is it? It costs you this,
Yeah.
but you don't want to know.
Yeah.
So in that kind of arrangement, the overseas buyers maybe realize there was a vacuum. So they tell you the cost is this, the insurance is this, this is how we're going to do it, the carrier will be this, but we have a right.
Yeah.
And this is what we tell our people. Push, insist, because then you're the one coughing out the money.
Yeah.
And you want to get the best value for your money. So insist on the insurance. And when you insist, then you're able to also insist on, you know, you can go further and say, I want so-and-so to carry my cargo. Then that way we'll be able to influence the trading patterns.
Yeah.
Because if you consider that when a car carrier, for example, docks in the berth in Mombasa, it doesn't come with two cars, two motor vehicles in being imported. You will have cars in their hundreds.
Yeah.
You could even have cars 900, 1,000.
Oh, wow.
Now, each of them represents a buyer. Now, if all those buyers came together, how much power do you think they can wield?
They'll have a voice.
You know, to
Yeah.
determine
Yeah.
the way that,
Yeah.
you know, that business
That
is
transaction
carried.
can take place, yeah.
They'll determine the insurance. They could even influence the amount of insurance premiums they pay, because then in numbers you have the opportunity for negotiating.
Yeah, true.
You know, you get
Yeah.
discounts. But this time, whoever we send the money to is the one who enjoys
Yeah.
such kind of duties. And then they are the ones who also enjoy maybe any discounts they get with the carrier. So these are
Yeah.
all issues that will take a long time to
Yeah.
get into our mindset and to determine how our business is carried and also how much profit we make at the end of the day.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
So how would you rate the level of efficiency at the Kenya ports in Mombasa, say, compared to when you started?
Now, one of the things that I've been talking about, and it's also part of our mandate, is to create a data center, maritime data center. So the thing that would help you then to measure the parameters of the kind of issues you're raising. But I want to say that it's very, very different. The government has committed a lot of money and a lot of projects around the maritime sector, all geared towards creating efficiency. For example, creating more space in the port so that you know, you don't have congestion. Creating or rearranging the process of cargo offtake. You know, the issue with the CFS station, you know, container freight stations, so that cargo doesn't stay too long in the port and it's evacuated as quickly as it's landed. That works towards efficiency. The game changer, the SGR,
Oh, yeah.
carrying a lot of cargo out of Mombasa.
Mombasa.
And then also we've seen the, you know, the rehabilitation of the ICD, so that a lot of cargo for upcountry doesn't have to spend time in Mombasa. So a lot has been done. But I also want to say that perhaps we need to move to the next level. If you look at our statistics, whenever we release our information and statistics, which is the basis of national planning, you see very little touching on the maritime sector. And we would want that to change so that you can make scientific, informed decisions
Yeah.
in terms of your business as an importer or as a trader, as an exporter, as an investor who wants to come into the maritime sector. So on two things, improvement of infrastructure has been very, very rapid and a lot of money committed, which of course feeds into the efficiency and, you know, effectiveness of the port. And we've seen a reduction of the cargo dwell time in the ports, which is all very good for the consumer. But then we feel that more information, we still need more information
Yeah.
in order to make informed decisions, and therefore a maritime data center, for example, that tells us how much the infrastructure we've done, how much has it yielded, but how much should it yield? So those are the questions. So that we are able to interrogate our processes. We are able to interrogate.
And measure exactly how we're doing.
On a global scale.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's good.
Yeah.
So there were planned earlier in the year by the government to revive the Kenya National shipping line.
Yes.
What is the progress?
Oh, that is still on course.
Okay.
We're working on reorganizing. We've had sessions with it, with the people who matter about it, and that's ongoing.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we should look forward to good things.
Very good things ahead.
And also the Kenya National shipping line, it's now a parastatal, right?
It is, yeah. Now it is a parastatal.
So
I think its growth has been hampered or taken a longer time because of that dualism, but now we are confident.
Okay. So what will happen to the foreign stakeholders, shareholders?
Shareholders?
Yeah, now
we're
that
talking to them.
It's a parastatal. Yeah.
We're talking to them in order to see how we can reorganize the way we do business together, and whether they'll want to stay with us or whether we'll reorganize the model. That's still work in progress. Yeah.
Okay. So what are some of the things that can be incorporated from the maritime sector with the tourism industry to work together? What are some of the ways that, the two sectors can work together to improve on the economy
at the outset,
in both ends?
Let me say that the maritime sector is an all-encompassing area, and it has nodes of possible collaboration, cooperation, and influence if we are able to create coherence across the entire government. So I'm glad entire government, a lot of areas here, because you've touched on the maritime, on the tourism, and that should be one of the obvious ones.
Yeah.
We are endowed with a very beautiful country. Tourism is one of our key products for development, in terms of foreign exchange, tapping into foreign exchange into the country. One of number one sectors for growth and development. But we want to say that we've not tapped into the tourism potential in the maritime sector for many reasons, because we've not developed products that then enrich the tourist's experience. We are very well endowed and blessed as a country with very warm climate all year round. Even when it's raining in Mombasa,
I know it's warm.
It can't compare with the cold season from the tourist-rich areas. Yeah. So warm waters all year round, white sandy beaches. Then if you look at the epicenter of coastal tourism, that's Mombasa. You're talking of an international airport, which is only 20 minutes into the town. An international port, which, if they were speaking together, would yield a lot. Then we've got game parks. Within 2 hours of landing in Mombasa, you can be in a game park. Now, if we did, circular or combined and created packages out of that, you're talking of absolutely rich experience. I could touch on two. Combining and bringing interrelationship between the cruise industry and the aviation and the game parks and the recreational areas around Mombasa. That's a product that nobody can argue with and which can be enjoyed all year round. So you're talking of day-long cruises. It hasn't been very successfully taken. You're talking of recreational boating activities that are also possible within Mombasa. You're talking of combining the sea and the aviation industry to work together to create. You could come up with another aviation hub in Mombasa, because in terms of maritime transport, people use the air because of its fastness in serving the sector. In terms of repair, if you want to bring in a spare part, you bring it by air. If you're talking of cruise passengers, come by air. So you could organize the cruise routes to do interchanges from Mombasa, because the passengers come on air, leave by air. Then the crew themselves, crew changes, because the seafarers need that connectivity. So you're talking of bringing in coherence. Mombasa can be a crew change center of monumental proportions,
Yeah.
and a lot of money to be made in that.
Okay.
Then you're talking of other leisure activities like sports fishing,
Yeah. Yeah.
which could even create its own calendar of events,
Yeah.
over the world.
Yeah.
We are told, and we've seen it in the enthusiasts who, partake of that. Malindi, because of the weather patterns and climate there, is very rich at certain times of the year with the kind of sporting activities that
Yeah.
the sports fisherman
Would
is
love to
looking for.
participate, yeah.
Yeah. So,
But it's not available.
but it's not, it's not been developed well.
Okay.
You're talking of even educational tours, research, lots of things.
Okay.
So we still have a long way to go in order to develop those products that then attract the tourists or
Okay.
even the marina.
Okay.
Yeah.
So finally, what should Kenyans look for in the next few coming months or years? Say 5 years from the
5 years from
blue
now.
industry. Yeah.
Okay. As I said in the beginning, we've had Vision 2030 doing its third medium-term plan. And one of the reasons, that has stalled the sector a bit is because we hadn't been mainstreamed in terms of national development. But we are very grateful now with the efforts that the president has been making, with the kind of awareness that has come about, even within policy-making organs of government, that now the maritime sector, all the blue economy, is now one of the facilitators of the economic pillar of development. So we are now anchored under the economic pillar as the maritime sector.
Okay.
So with this, because as you are aware, in terms of economic planning, in terms of budgeting, if you are not in the in the MTP, then it's very difficult to squeeze some money for development.
Yeah.
And now that we are mainstreamed, we expect, or Kenyans should expect, that the industry is poised for takeoff in terms of the various other areas we've been talking about. And we are very excited about that.
Okay. Just one more, I think, a question that is very important. I know I say that would be the last question, but this is, how does piracy and terrorism affect the maritime industry?
Piracy and
terrorism, yeah.
The effects in
How is the
quiet
challenge?
areas. We are grateful that because of the programs and the measures that the Kenya government took, we've been able to secure, or the maritime industry has been able to secure
Our waters.
the epicenter of piracy, along the
Somalia.
the Somali areas and the
Border, yeah.
Indian Ocean widely. So for that we are very grateful. Now, piracy affects the maritime transport in very subtle ways. For example, and the end result of all those ways is to increase the cost of doing business. Insurance goes up because then confidence in safety, security is very much reduced. So the kind of person who wants to bring his asset for trade in the region or in the region affected by piracy will have to exact a lot of money in terms of confidence that if anything happens, then he'll be able to continue in business. So you see a lot of insurance premiums going up. They all impact on the trade. Then in terms of also the workers, the seafarers, because they are not sure that they'll be going back at the time they are going back, then of course prices in terms of wages goes up. And generally, the ship itself, in terms of cargo, the premiums go up. In terms of the assets, the prices go up. And you see a lot of other...
So the consumer gets to meet
there's the
whole
all of it is
the whole
loaded
inflation,
on the consumer, yes. And then you see a lot of other measures that are put in place that the consumer has to pay for. For example, with the last spate of piracy, we saw the introduction of other players that were never in the maritime sector. Armed guards on board ships.
Oh, that is money.
That is money. They cost a lot of money. And also, they bring another, aspect to insecurity. Because you're talking of ammunition comes in. And that's, when we did our research, it's a lot of firepower coming into the region, which we may not have been prepared for because we didn't have the legislation, we didn't have the policies, and it caught us by surprise. And therefore, you see a lot of emerging areas that you have to address and, that develop as you're trying to catch up all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, so But we're glad that we've seen a lot of reduction of this.
Of the piracy cases, especially
Yes,
around the Kenyan Somali waters.
Along the Western
Indian Ocean. Okay.
Yeah, Western Indian Ocean, yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Mrs. Nancy Karigithu, it was wonderful to have you on the show today.
Thank you very much. I'm honored.
And hopefully I'll check on with you in a couple of months and see how everything else is doing. This has been The Point. I am Miriam Magutu. And until next time, thank you for watching.